Okay, I'm going to record this, so know that everybody is being recorded. All right. Want to look at the syllabus first.
Can you get to the chat now?
No, I haven't found it.
Well, I logged out as me and logged in as Megan so that you should be the host and it should act normal.
Good luck with that, huh? All right. No, I'm still not. And I don't have a little bar down here. I mean, I have a bar, but it doesn't have that on it. So you guys just come off mute if you got a question, okay?
Yeah.
Oops. Sorry, I got too many windows open. My computer's getting a little slow. All right, and you guys can follow along with me in the on your own because you have the syllabus in your Canvas account. What we had initially planned was 80 hours of clinical, and as you know, we're struggling trying to find sites. Right now, we just got the word maybe 45 minutes ago that Lebanon has now closed the preceptorship to students. They're going to reassess the 27th. So if you have any clinicals this week, you can't go until we get further word on that. And with the way things are going, I'm thinking that Gilwalk's going to probably shut down too, but do not have any positive word on that yet. As far as we know, Gilwalk is still open, and you can still go to clinical there this week. That may change tomorrow, though. So just keep, as things change, we will post it in the announcements on Nursing 204, in 204 and 204H. So be sure to be watching for that. We do have a plan, which we will tell you about after we kind of go through some other stuff here. We've also got a backup plan for the backup plan. So don't stress it. We are going to get you graduated. It's just a matter of everybody in the country is the same way. All the schools are having their clinical sites shut down. So this,
Barb, I'm
yeah,
going to interrupt you. I'm sorry, but did you just say that you can do Gilwalk
yes,
for preceptorship? Megan this email like yesterday, the day before, saying that Gilwalk is closed for preceptorships as well for clinicals.
And then they opened it back up and then they closed it again.
yeah, it's just day by day is the way it's going. It's just day by day.
So as of right now, we can do Gilwalk?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. You can do Gilwalk tomorrow. That may change. You know, I don't know. It's unfortunate, but it's for the safety of yourselves and the staff and the patients. So,
sorry, Barb.
yeah.
So today, as of today, Lebanon is not accepting preceptors right now, or
Yes.
student nurses.
Yes.
Yeah.
They are not.
About a half hour before we started class.
Yeah.
Okay,
Megan got the word right before she left Fort Wood.
And I hate to do this, but who is Diagon Alley? Who's the Harry Potter fan? I can count you for attendance. Okay, thank you.
Okay. This course is your you have to have a writing intensive course that goes along with your degree. So this course is a lot of writing. You've got to write some papers. We'd already told you that. You have your course objectives, you have your contact people here, your required texts. Now, you don't have to buy the book necessarily. Most of it is online on that Owl Purdue site, which I will show you. So, question? Okay. Most of this is the same. Here's the grading criteria. You only have 2 exams in this course, a midterm and a final. You have a leadership paper. You have your due dates here. You interview a nurse leader. It's worth 10 points. You have a questionnaire that you will develop and pick someone that's in nursing leadership. It can be a charge nurse. You can interview them preferably in person, but if you cannot, we would accept by phone or through video. You would have to state how you did the interview, though. Uh-oh, my internet connection's unstable. That's never happened before. You have 2 Kaplan exams at the end of the course. Your evidence-based paper is the biggie in this course. It's worth 55 points. You have a thesis statement and an outline, which is due this weekend. We'll talk about that. You have a class presentation, which you will be doing online here. Preferably if you can develop a PowerPoint, because it's going to be really, really hard to see a poster if you do a poster. So preferably develop a short PowerPoint that talks about your evidence-based paper. We're going to have some 2 discussion boards worth 5 points. The postings, you'll have like 2 questions, 2 discussion topics. They are in the course outline as far as when they're due. You have to respond, you have to post twice, so once to each question, and then you have to respond to at least one of the topics besides your posting. So you would be talking, posting to someone else's post, if you will, replying to someone else's post, adding your 2 cents. The postings, we have descriptions of how that should be done. Preferably, you need a reference for your posting. And that is all outlined also. This course has rubrics that you guys need to follow. Each rubric tells exactly what you need to do in your paper, your presentation, your discussion board, etc., etc. So pay close attention to your syllabus. You have to have 188 points to pass the course. Course requirements, you can read all that. It's about the same. The 2 Kaplan exams will be Critical Thinking A and Management and Professional Issues. It tells a little bit about the technology that you need. Testing policies, you need to go through that, read it, understand it. We do not do any makeup quizzes. You have to have a really, really good excuse to be absent from class. We take attendance for class attendance. And one thing you guys really need to know is that your class attendance can affect your financial aid, because if we have to report that you were in class. If we report that you missed 6 out of however many, 20 courses that could affect your financial aid. So it's very important that you come to class.
Can I,
Yeah.
I have to upload the revised syllabus, which includes a section that's right underneath this one, and it will say student online testing policy. And so basically, everybody will take the same test at the same time. It will be online and it will be through Canvas. We're thinking, because part of it is multiple choice and part of it is essay. So you will have one exam for the multiple choice and one exam. The multiple choice, you'll have 2 minutes per question. And the essay, then you'll have longer on that second one because that's writing intensive. And there's, what you can do if your computer messes up, that kind of thing. We will be using Honor Lock, which is a proctoring system. And so you have to test on a computer with a webcam. It will record the student, both audio and visual capabilities, and the students have to show their student identification before the exam begins. You should test your internet speed first. And if you are lucky enough to be able to be in a clinical setting and you miss class, now this is class, not a test. If you miss class, you have to watch the recording and send a summary to either Barb and I within 48 hours of the class. And I will upload that updated syllabus with that content in it now. All yours.
Oh, that's okay. Does anybody have any questions about that? If you can go to clinical, you will be allowed to miss class because your clinical time is so scarce. But if you miss class for clinical, you need to watch the video recording afterwards and you will be excused. It won't be counted as an absence, but you have to do it within 48 hours. Everybody good with that? All good, all fair? You guys are so quiet, you make me nervous. Okay, Sandy's going to upload that test policy. Be sure and read it carefully. Most of the rest of this you can read. This talks about your attendance, maximum number of absences that you can have. But I do know that some financial aid groups do not go by this. They go by other percentages or something. So double check if you need to be absent. You get sick or something, double check. If there's an emergency in the family, please let Sandy or I know, and we'll try to work with you on that. But that would be extenuating circumstances. Okay. No cheating, you know that. You need to read about the summarizing, paraphrasing, and quoting. There's also some information on the OWL Purdue site about this. Talks about if you, in these papers, you guys are writing a professional paper. In these papers, if you take somebody else's idea and put it in your paper, or you quote somebody else, you have to cite it as a reference in the paper, in text, and as a reference. And we will show you some examples of that. But think about it, anybody else's ideas even that you've read, unless it's like common knowledge stuff. I can't think of a good example right now, but if it is like everybody knows that, and it's not anything that anybody in particular said. That is not an idea that needs to be quoted, okay? Any questions about any of that so far? Everybody,
They were asking about student ID. If we can see you, we don't really worry about that. This is a school-wide policy. Uh, so if somebody else is doing it that doesn't know you, then we would just need something, some kind of an ID.
driver's
But
license with your picture on it, something with your
it
picture
is
on it,
fine. Yeah, it's fine.
passport, something like that. Okay, good. Clinical lab grading, you can read through all of that. If you do go to clinical and you need to change times, you have to tell your preceptor, I mean your clinical instructor. For instance, if I were your clinical instructor and you were scheduled to be at Gale Walk tomorrow night on nights, if I make a trip all the way over there and for some reason you're not there, either your nurse got called off or you got sick or something else happened, I'd be upset that I drove all the way over there just to check in on you and you're not there. So please, please, any change in schedule, you have to let your clinical instructor know, and it needs to be changed on the posting of your schedule in Canvas. Okay? Sandy, is there any questions about that popping up?
No.
Okay. Classroom requirements talks again about the papers and the PowerPoint. If you are late on an assignment in this course, you will get deducted 5 points for every day that you're late. So I would start my paper tonight, tomorrow, get it started, get it worked on, get it done ahead of time because you do not want to come down to the deadline and not have it done. And you want to turn in a good paper, you know, so give yourself time to do that. Set aside some time to do that. The clinical paperwork is here. Your clinical instructor can go over that with you. Any day that you are in clinical, your preceptor has to fill out a little paper on you saying whether you need more work on this area or you're really good in this area, and sign it, and you have to upload it to Canvas. There's a Dropbox on Canvas in the clinical part, right, Sandy?
Yes.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
It's set up for day 1, day 2, day 3. But at this point, most of you are not going to be in traditional clinicals.
right. You have to do a reflective log for each clinical day that you're there. You have to do a process recording displaying therapeutic communication. If you're not going to clinicals, we will work with you on that process recording. And we may have a scenario or something where you could come back with how you would handle that difficult situation. There's a lot of things right now we do have figured out for this course, but as you know, this whole week has just been an uproar. So there are a few little things that we do not have fine-tuned yet, but you guys don't stress it. We'll work with you. We'll figure it out, okay?
You guys will graduate.
Yes, we will push you through, get you to NCLEX. Guidelines for the clinical setting, you guys already know that. You have done that before. Social networking policy, please read that. We're going to talk about that in this course, but you should already know that you need to follow good practices as far as not sharing any information that could possibly lead back to a patient. We had that done on Facebook one year. They didn't name the patient. They named the place and part of the enough of the situation that somebody else picked up on it and called me. I was the director then, and it was a big deal. So do not even go there. Don't, you know, I don't go there. When I go to a clinical setting, if I see somebody I know, I don't come home and tell my husband I saw him. My husband will come about a week later and say, "Why didn't you tell me he was in the hospital?" And I say, I, I can't, I can't go there. So there's a lot of tips here to avoid any problems like that. You don't want to get in that situation as a nurse or as a student. Uh, the rest of this right here is about disabilities, sexual harassment, you know that. Here are the discussion board requirements. Note that the postings have to be a minimum of 100 words in length, so it needs to be more or less something substantial. We put 100 words in there because we figured that's a good reply. If you have like a couple of sentences, 3, 4, 5 sentences, that should cover your 100 words. They need to be professional. Don't come back with just a remark or a reply to somebody that says, well, I think that's a silly idea, and I don't know why they do that, or something like that. That's not professional. Complete sentences and references, at least one APA reference in the initial posting for each discussion board.
And those will
Guideline,
be open either tonight or tomorrow.
probably
We do have
probably
question.
tomorrow.
Yeah, probably tomorrow. We have a question about the process reporting due for week 1. Could we change it to a later date? Because originally that was for a nurse or a medical person, if I recall correctly.
Yes,
Um,
I'm getting my notes. I think that would be appropriate.
I'm wondering, we will give some further guidance on how you could contact someone.
Let's
If you
Sandy
aren't
and
going to
I,
be in clinical.
yeah, let Sandy and I talk about that just a little bit. For right now, don't worry about having it in yet. How's that sound, Sandy?
Sounds good.
Okay. And the other note was we'll get the discussion board question up.
Yeah.
Okay. I got to write this down or I'll forget it. Too
I
much
love
going
sticky notes.
on. Too much going on. Okay, your leadership paper, that's something that you could start on right away too. Pick a topic that you're interested in. Doesn't have to be one of the topics that's here on the syllabi. It could be anything related to nursing. Your articles that you cite have to be within the previous 5 years. So anything 2015 or after, unless it is like a historical volume of something like Notes on Nursing by Florence Nightingale, something like that, that could be acceptable. The articles or I prefer if you send a link to the articles instead of trying to upload all the articles that you reference. That would be preferable if you could do that maybe at the end of your paper or something, so that we can go back and look at the article and see what you have cited and if it is cited appropriately. Okay? Any questions about the leadership paper?
I did have a student ask me if they could use something for like definitions and things like that that was beyond the 5 years. And I said it still had to be within 10 years and did not count towards the required ones that are 5 years or less.
Right. Right. Okay. This gives you a breakdown of how we will grade the leadership papers. So you can see if to get the maximum points, you have to have no errors in your APA, a detailed discussion of 3 examples related to nursing practice. Look at that last column on all of these rubrics. That is what you have to get the maximum points. So you have to show us that it is there. We have to obviously see that in the paper. You may think that you put it in the paper, but if it's not clear to us, we can't give you the points. Okay? Follow the formatting guidelines. Use proper grammar and spelling. Don't have any spelling errors in your paper. You can run it through Grammarly, but that is not always accurate. You may see a few errors there still. Reread your paper out loud is the best way to catch errors, or have someone else read your paper before you turn it in. They can sometimes see things that when you're writing a paper and you get into the 3rd page of it, and you're tired and you may make a mistake and you reread it again and it sounds okay, but you're still tired from doing all your other stuff. It's better to have somebody else look at it and say, hey, you made a grammar error here, or spelling error or something. The nurse leader interview, same thing. You can read through all of this. What you need an introduction, a body, and the mechanics. There's your rubric for that.
Ms. Barr, we had a question. Could we just include the links or the URLs in our references? Is that sufficient?
No. You have to have a reference page.
Yeah, no, on the reference page for
the articles
yeah,
that we're
so that we
using.
can access the articles.
Yes.
Okay.
But if you cite a particular part of the article, you still need to cite it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think she's just asking about, because you said they didn't have to attach the actual article.
Yes. You do not.
So if we can get to the article in your APA reference that is on your reference page, then that would be cool.
That would be sufficient. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Nurse leader interview tells you exactly what you need. This talks about your evidence-based practice thesis statement. Some of you have already come up with a few ideas for your evidence-based practice paper. Now, this is just an outline. This is just giving you a start on your paper. What is your question? What do you want answered? Let's say, I don't know, can't think of a topic off the top of my head. You want to know, this is silly, but you want to know why we use evidence-based practice. So you're going to come up with a question as far as who does it affect? Like if they do, that was a gnat or something. If they do let's say a Foley catheter, why do we not check the balloon before we insert the Foley catheter? That's silly, but it has to be a question or question type of something. So you're looking at your PICO, who does it affect? What is the treatment? What's the intervention? How is it different from something else? Why is it better? You could do comparisons of something. and what is the expected outcome. Okay, you will not always have the T or the time frame on that. You could do a PICO, but try to follow that. And then here would be an example of how to do your paper outline. So you would have an introduction, a brief statement of your PICO, all right? So you state your thesis. I think that they do not inflate the balloons on the Foley catheters before insertion because that stretches out the balloon or whatever. You define the issue in just a few sentences in your introduction. This is not your paper. This is just like notes on to get you thinking, how would I write this paper to make it make sense? So I'm going to follow this example. I'm going to have an introduction. Then I'm going to go into the body of the paper where I'm going to summarize the articles that I read about my question. And then what's the current practice, et cetera, et cetera. You're just going to go down through the outline. Just a few sentences, though, in this. You don't need the whole paper in your outline. This is just putting your thoughts on paper so that you'd have a good flow of information in your paper. Then you're going to do a conclusion and probably a concluding statement. This is what I found. So think of it as if you are talking to an audience, because that's what you're doing when you're writing a paper. And you're coming up with different ideas for whatever your topic is. Is there any questions on that? Okay. Guys are quiet. Here's your rubric, evidence-based paper outline for your thesis. Meaning, do you have a statement? Do you have an intro? What's your body of the paper going to look like, and what's your conclusion probably going to look like? Now, note the evidence-based practice paper kind of follows the same thing. It just has more information in it. This is where you're going to write all of your thoughts. And we don't want papers that just come from articles. We want your thoughts in this paper. So this is an exception to the general APA rule. In this paper or in your leadership paper, you can just say, you can use the first tense, first pronoun I instead of the author. Or you can say the author, meaning yourself. But you can refer to yourself in this paper. Typically in a professional paper, you would not. But we are asking for your thoughts in this paper. So it makes sense that you can use the word I. I noticed this on the floor when I was on the oncology unit. This is how they did this. And because it does ask for what's the current practice. So you can say I. Okay, any questions about that?
Our thoughts on which paper?
The leadership paper or the evidence-based practice paper, I do not mind if they use I. First person.
And I was trying to bring up the syllabus. It's more than one article, is it not?
More than one article for what, Sandy?
I'm not sure which one she was talking about.
You need to have, for your papers, you should have, for the evidence-based practice paper, you should have at least 3 references or 3 articles cited. 3 different articles, at least. Most of the time, you're going to have more than that. Your leadership paper, 2 or 3,
Yeah, it says a minimum of 2.
Yeah. Okay.
Is it okay if we just use the school library for our references for our papers?
Please.
Yes, we're going to show you how to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Goo-
Yeah.
Google Scholar does not work.
Yes. No, it does not. Evidence-based practice rubric is here. You can read through that. You'll note again, it needs to be well organized. It needs to be detailed. You need to have a summary. You need to put your own thoughts into this paper. I don't want a paper that just has reference, 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 in the body of the paper. Because that's not the way to write a paper. Your poster presentation or your PowerPoint presentation is going to be due towards the end of the semester, after or about the same time, I don't remember, as your evidence-based practice paper. This has the grading rubric for the presentation. You are going to come on camera and do this, so you need to be able to play with this and make sure that you can do that, if that makes sense. Let's see. Sandy, there is a free account on Zoom, right?
Yes.
So if the students wanted to get together and do little practice setups for their presentation, you guys could do that. There's a free account you can sign up for on Zoom.
If it's just 2 people, you can talk for as long as you want to. If it's 3 or more people, you have a 40-minute timeline on the free one.
So you could get together there and do some chats or something. Help each other. Do group work, help each other. The guidelines for the reflective log are here. You need to read through that. The process recording is the same as you've been doing all through school, with the exception of Sandy and I will talk about that, see how we can get that accomplished for those of you that are not in clinical right now. Guidelines for the clinical experience. If you do go to clinical, if you're working on OB, you cannot give any drugs to an OB patient. I don't care if they are pre or post, do not do meds on OB, okay? And no IV chemo drugs or blood or cardiac meds. That's the same. Okay, so this is what we're going to do tonight. Any other questions so far? Okay. I am going to move this over if I can. It'll let me. And get back to, where is my home page? There it is.
Ed Center, we don't know how long it's closed for. It may be for 2 weeks. It may be for the rest of the semester.
Right.
At this point, pinning is still scheduled for May 6th. We will let you know closer to the time. I'm just answering questions in the chat, sorry.
That's good. No, that's good. Anything else?
There was a statement during a Phelps Health meeting. The executive said that they're reevaluating on the 1st, April 1st, but they expect this to last 6 to 8 weeks, which is your last class. So we will just see. And what you'll do for hours, we have a backup plan. And like you said, we have a backup of a backup. So you will get hours and that will count for clinical, and you will be able to graduate. Okay.
So we should probably just go ahead and talk about it, Sandy, since they're asking.
Yeah.
This is a good point to do so. Do you want to tell them?
We will be doing some virtual simulations, and so you will be getting information on this, like Shadow Health, and you will be working with your clinical supervisor or your clinical instructor with debriefing and that, like you do with a simulation. It's important to talk about it because that's where the learning grows. You know, where do you understand the critical thinking of how did you get from point A to point B, and so we have some various programs that are virtual, and we are looking at free because we don't. Our goal is to make this no added cost, and so you will be doing virtual, and you will be working with your clinical instructor. Does that make sense? Got a couple yeses.
And we're just kind of playing it, day by day, week by week. I think Sandy and Megan attended a National League for Nursing talk today. Basically, they are leaving this clinical situation. As I said, this is nationwide. The clinical situation up to the state boards of nursing. Our Missouri State Board of Nursing does not tell us how many clinical hours we have to have specifically in each course. The university makes that decision. The faculty make that decision as they develop curriculum. Now, with this situation, the State Board of Nursing has said that, again, they will leave it, they understand the situation that we're in. They will leave it up to us as to how or how many virtual simulations, if we want to do that, how many hours we want to give those simulations. I do know that Shadow Health, Jeff and I have done one in the past. It's called Advanced Health Assessment. We're going to do that one. That is, we're giving you 8 hours to complete that, 8 hours of clinical. There's one more in leadership, and then we're also looking at another company for another 30 hours. So we'll play it day by day, week by week. Other solutions may come up to fill in for some clinical time. It is unfortunate. I feel bad about it. I don't want you guys to be all stressed out about it, though, because it's like a lot of things in nursing. We do what we can do, and we just deal with it, we have to kind of roll with the punches. I know those are all phrases that you've heard elsewhere, but it's true. Everybody's in this situation. Nobody is hammering us to, well, these guys can't graduate because they don't have this many hours. There's nothing like that going on. I don't want any rumors spreading about that either.
The NLN and the state board have been very good to work with all the nursing schools to get you guys graduated, and they are being very flexible. And the meeting that I was in this afternoon with the NLN had some really good additional ideas that we had not tapped yet, and so it's going to work out, guys. Like she said, we don't want you stressing out. You're going to get this. Okay.
Okay, any questions about clinicals? We do what we can do and we move on.
And that's nursing. you know, you guys are going to be graduating and it's going to be very busy. And, um, you know, hospitals are doing, they are going back to alternate plans, you know, like many hospitals have canceled elective surgeries. And that has to happen sometimes. So flexibility in nursing, and we get the job done at the end of the day.
That's right.
And Gage was asking about questions about his paper. The best way to contact you through email. That works for me. Does it work for you?
Yeah, email, or if you have a quick question, I don't mind if you text me between 9 and 9. My husband gets upset if it's after 9 o'clock at night. So, you know, if it's just a quick question, text me. If it's a longer explanation of something, you know, go ahead and email me. And if you want, I don't check my email 2 or 3 times a day. So if you want, you could email me and then text me and say, "Hey, Barb, check your email." I don't mind that either, and I know Sandy doesn't
Good idea.
either. Okay. Any other questions about clinical? Alrighty. I am going to show you, if you don't already know, how to use the Lincoln Library. We don't want you going to google.com or drjohn.com or something like that for your papers. You need to be investigating evidence-based practice situations in a professional manner. So you go to professional journals, magazines, etc. Here's the library link. And I think I also posted it on Canvas. And you can go here to articles, and it gives you the EBSCO host research databases. And I'm going to put in evidence-based practice. Say you don't really know what you want to do yet on a topic. You've got a general idea, so you could put something general in the search, like evidence-based practice is going to bring up a zillion results on my internet, I hope. I don't know what's going on with my internet. Tell me when you can see it. It's not quite done yet. It's the wheel of doom. Tell me when you can see my screen.
It's clear over here.
Yep, we can see it.
Thank you. Okay, so it brings up all these articles on evidence-based practice. Let me see here. What you would do here is you can put in another topic to narrow it down, narrow your search down, and then hit search, and it would narrow evidence-based practice down to maybe, I don't know, urinary tract infections, or just nursing evidence-based practice, because evidence-based practice came from a different science than nursing. Nursing borrowed it and used it well. So down here, we want full text articles only, because otherwise you're just going to get like an abstract, and you don't want that. So now it's going to bring up just full text articles. I want my date to be within the last 5 years, so I need to scrunch this down. I should have just put the year in there, but I was playing with the bar. Not playing at the bar, playing with the bar. I need claps or laughs or something. I feel like I'm out here all alone. Okay. Now, the publication date is between 2015 and 2020. What do I want? I want journals. Whoops. I want academic journals or journals. You could click both of those. You could go down here to language. You want it only in English. You know, all kinds of choices here to narrow down your search. Questions? That's basically how you use the library, and it gives you a lot of good information. Like this first one here, factors associated with nurses' knowledge of and the perceived value in evidence-based practices. Do nurses really follow evidence-based practices? That's a pretty general statement. You could maybe read this article and get some ideas for your paper. Okay? So you can see there's pediatric stuff. Now, one thing I do not want is I don't want something that we already know. That already has one of those, they call them bundles, like for ventilator associated pneumonia. Here's best practice for that, unless you've heard of something new. Now, I posted on Canvas some ideas for papers if you want to go there and look. I think I'm done. Any questions on the library before I close it? Okay, I'm going to get out of that. And I'm going to get out of that. Oh, also, remember you have to have your community service 2 hours done. If you didn't do it last semester, you need to do it this semester. Giving blood does count. It's a good thing. I posted here evidence-based practice topics. Those are things to just give you some ideas on how to, something to write if you're just don't know yet. There's an evidence-based practice toolkit here, which you need to review. It has a lot of good information about how we use evidence-based practice. There's APA 6th edition information. Here's an example of references. I'm going to go back to my, where is it? I'm going to go to my OWL first, I think here. That Purdue OWL website, enormous amount of good information here. If you go to the main page, if you get this page, you need to go to APA Guide, and then we are using the 6th edition. So here is where it says the resource for APA 6 style can be found here. That's where you go, okay? Don't use the 7th edition because that's not what we required when you first started. And then you go over here, and here is the APA 6th edition. It tells about formatting, style. It tells you how to use citations. There's an overview and a workshop in here you should do before you write your paper. And then, let's see here. Was it that one? No. There's a link to the Johns Hopkins Nursing Evidence-Based Practice Model. It goes right along with what you learn about evidence-based practice. There are different levels of evidence. For instance, if Sandy told me something, some fact she had heard, that would be a qualitative statement, probably. There are, you will see in this, if you read this article, the different levels. As the different levels increase, it increases the validity and the reliability of the information. So you need to look at what type, if you're looking at research articles, you need to look at what type of article it is. And it will tell you, you know, if it's qualitative or quantitative. It will tell you, one thing that I learned in my master's program, maybe in my bachelor's program too, I don't remember that long ago, was when you look at experiments that they do, and they have different subjects in that experiment, look to see how many subjects they had. Did they have 1,000? And from that 1,000, they're saying this evidence is valid? Or did they have 20 subjects? Look at the number of times this has been evaluated or researched, you know, from different sources, different people. Any questions on that? Guys are too quiet. Telling
I
you.
asked if it has to have evidence-based practice in the title. And it doesn't. It can.
This also talks about suggested resources for evidence-based practice. And right now is a very good example of that. Instead of people going to google.com for information on COVID-19, the best place to go for your information is where? Two places. Somebody's got to raise their hand.
WHO.
What?
WHO. World Health Organization.
Yes, that's one of them. Where's the other one?
NIH.
That's a good one. Where's another one? One
Who?
I'm thinking of.
CDC.
CDC.
Yep, they're writing CDC, WHO, NIH, OSHA, Health Department.
Yes, excellent. Those, and that's what you learn in this class, is how to look up valid information. People out in the public, they get a lot of information from word of mouth, from other people, and you know how that goes. The story changes every time it gets along, and then it gets to you, and you look at them like, where'd you hear that at? You know, your job as a nurse, a lot of your job is to teach. So you need to teach your patients. Here's where to go to look for valid information on the internet. We've got more and more seniors that are using the internet. And they will look up their pills, and they will look them up in places that aren't, you know, really reliable. So you need to be able to steer your patients towards evidence-based practice. It's very important in nursing. Okay, any questions about that? That is all on Canvas for you to look at. Like I said, this is an excellent, excellent source to go to write your paper. Also, I posted examples of references here. Someone asked about references. This paper, I think, gives an example of most of the types of references that you're going to be using. Like here's one for someone that's anonymous, but it came from a healthcare journal. It tells how to cite the journal and the pages. This one is just a journal entry with 2 authors. Notice how with this one, this next one, there are multiple authors. Now this is just the reference page. Your in-text citations, you'll have to look up on APA how to do those. If you referenced these 2 authors, how would I cite it in my paper? I'm going to let you look that up. if I cited these authors, how would I note it in my paper? Am I going to put all their names on there? Am I going to put the date? Am I going to put all this information? How do I do that? Look at your APA on Purdue, or if you have the 6th edition APA. Here's one, another journal. Here's another journal. These are just different examples here for you to follow. And they're very well written. There was one here I thought that was an internet site, I thought. Maybe I saw that somewhere else. I think that's somewhere else. But anyway, that gives you a really good start. This link, I think, takes you right to where we were. Takes you to the 6th edition information. Okay.
And I believe they still have a sample paper there. I know some of you guys want to make a really pretty paper, but this is professional and not pretty.
Your PowerPoint could be pretty.
Yes, your PowerPoint presentation can be as pretty as you want. There is a way to, when you're in Word, and you click like the header on the right hand side, it gives you like options, and you can click that and make a different first page, and that's how you put running head and your title on the first page, and then on the second page you only have the title. The words running head are not on there. With the presentation, you can upload your PowerPoint, and we will be doing that by Zoom. And so the PowerPoint will be showing while you're talking. We do not need an abstract on your paper.
I was thinking I had a student paper here somewhere, but I can't find it right now. An example. I have examples of everything else. Let me see this, what this is. Okay, guys, I'm going to take about a 15-minute break. Oh, here it is, APA overview. I don't think I got that posted because I wanted to double check the links in it to make sure that it was correct. But it's a basic, very basic 2-page how to do your references and your citations. So I will double check this, make sure it's accurate, make sure the links are valid, and then I will post it also. It's an APA overview.
Oh, I was going to say, while you have that paper up, can you show them how to do that different first page? Just any kind of Word document.
Okay. It is under layout, I think, isn't it, or where? Where is?
Okay, so insert the.
Oh, headers.
Yeah.
Oh, here. Insert header. And I want blank.
I do the page number. But yours, oh, there we go. See where it says right under design, it says different first page. You can put a click on that different first page right under design.
My glasses on.
The other design. It says towards the middle of the page.
The other design. Oh, here, yes.
And then go to page number. Top of page,
We want
plain number 3,
bottom of page on the right.
top of page. I was wanting to show them how to do the running head.
How's that? Oops.
Can we show them how to do running head? If we do page number,
Yeah.
put a page number, top of page, third one down, plain number 3. No. Top of page.
Did
Then
that.
there
Did
you
that
go.
already. Yeah.
Now click that one. Okay. Now you can type in running head.
Here.
No, right where it was.
I should have gave you control.
Yeah, give me control.
Oh, goodness.
I've been writing way too many papers lately.
Yeah, you have, and it's been a while for me. First page header here. I thought you could just type the header in here like I did Sandy's page, and then over here just put Sandy's or whatever.
No,
No?
no.
Well, let me see here. How do I give you control?
I think I've got it. Can you see my paper, guys? You'll have to say something because I can't see the title or the chat.
No.
I see a paper.
Okay, says the course syllabus. Okay. Header and footer, page number, top of page.
I just gave
And
you
so it
control.
has,
I just gave you control.
okay,
You did on this paper, I think.
first page.
It says it's waiting on you to take control of my screen. We're learning something new here, guys.
Yeah. Guys, it never ever stops learning.
This is true.
Yep.
It's not
Okay.
not giving it to you.
It shows that it's sharing.
Yeah, but I've still got control.
Can you see what I'm doing though?
No.
No.
Let me stop sharing.
Okay.
Oh, how do I stop sharing? Pause sharing.
Yeah. They just found that case out 2 days ago. Yesterday. From Boone County. That's Boone County done in Columbia. Boone County is
Okay, so you should see my syllabus. Can you see my syllabus?
No. You could just tell them how to do it.
Okay.
You could just
Header, footer.
put it in the instructions that I'm going to post on APA.
I'll make a short video of it with Screencast-O-Matic
Okay.
and post that there. That'd probably be better for them anyway.
All right.
Sorry, guys.
All right, we're going to take about a 15-minute break, guys. So about 6:35 or so, you guys go get something to eat, some sugar, get a drink, and we will be right back, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. I lost my chat again. Not my chat. I lost my people. Hmm.
I think I'm a favorite right now. He always. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Zoom recording. Okay, you should see the button. All right, does anybody have any more questions about anything we went over? I went over quite a bit of information. Hopefully you had already read through the syllabus, and we put up all this stuff that you can look at with evidence-based practice. You can be thinking about what you want to do for your paper. Think about what you want to do for your leadership paper. The interview questions, somebody brought that up. Sandy put a Dropbox in Canvas for that. The reason that I want you to put your questions in there is in the past I had some people ask some what I thought were not appropriate professional questions to a leader, so we just want to approve those. If you see that it is marked complete, then you're good to go on your interview. Ideas for interview topics would be asking them, how did you get your current position? What did you have to have any special education for that or degree for this position? Things like what qualities do you think are, maybe what are the top 2 or 3 qualities that you think a leader should have? Questions like that to bring out, what they do in their job. What challenges do you see? How has healthcare changed since you've been a leader or since you've been a nurse? And how does that affect your job or your patients? Something like that would be appropriate questions to ask. Okay? All right. Anything else about the syllabus or clinicals, virtual simulation, anything like that? Siri keeps talking to me on my phone, and I don't know why. I'd never used it. I never used it before. Now I'm talking on here, and it's coming on, and I'm going, what? What the heck?
Ava was asking, can she send a rough draft of our thesis and outline before we go deeper?
Yes. We will give you comments on your rough draft of your outline, your thesis, statement, etc., and you can correct it or change it once. That's only on the thesis and the outline, okay? When you turn in your papers, we're not going to grade them twice, so you need to be sure that you have followed APA guidelines. And I will tell you that I have had students in the past fail this course because of APA, and that was a darn shame. So, you know, get together with your buddies, read the APA on OWL. There's lots and lots of resources out there. There's no reason why you should fail this course. Okay? No stress, right? Everybody say right. This is really weird talking to myself. Okay. So let's look at the week 1 information that we have here. We have a PowerPoint up. I'm going to go through it real briefly just because it follows.
It's still showing your paper.
It's not showing, or it's still showing my paper.
Yeah, it's still showing the paper.
Okay. I'll stop sharing and reshare. Okay, tell me if you when or if you can see it.
There you go.
Okay. This is a real short PowerPoint, just has a few things on it. You guys are responsible for reading your books, your chapters before you come to class. We are going to encourage more participation from you guys because we don't want to just sit up here and talk to the computer screen. All right. So what do you guys think are the qualities that are associated with a profession? Nursing is a profession. Anybody want to come off mute?
Can you repeat that question, Barb? My dog started barking.
Yeah. What qualities do you think are associated with a profession?
Education,
Okay.
advanced education.
What else?
Knowledge.
Knowledge. See, most of the professions out there, whether it be nursing or other professions, lawyer, doctor, dentist, you have to have a certain amount of education. You have to have certain qualifications to be a professional, right? Okay, so that's part of our learning objectives here. Brief history of nursing. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. But if you think about it, most of the nursing as a profession came out of world wars or localized wars, such as Florence Nightingale in the Crimean War. When she wanted to be a nurse, the only people that were nurses, the only women that were nurses, were prostitutes mainly, people of lower character. And you can remember back in history, people got accused of witchcraft if they did homeopathic type medicines. any type of healing, spiritual healing. They could be accused of witchcraft. But back in the mid 1800s with Florence, mid to late 1800s, there were no nurses or nursing schools per se. That nursing was not a profession. She came from a very rich family. Her family did not want her to be a nurse because of that fact. But she wanted to be a nurse, and that's what she did. They wanted her to get married, have kids, be a respectable, upper class citizen, and she chose to help people. So the definition of profession, they have a code of ethics also. Each profession has their own code of ethics. If you haven't seen the code of ethics for nursing, we have that. Sandy's going to talk about that in a later chapter. They have standards and expected behaviors. I told you guys that as a nurse, you can't get in any trouble at all with the law. They could take your license away for that. They could suspend your license for that. Many instances have happened where nurses, and you read it in that paper that we get quarterly from the Missouri State Board of Nursing. Most of it is drug charges. Nurses stealing drugs. Nurses taking drugs that they're not supposed to, or alcohol abuse, things like that. So we have to have professional behaviors. We have to have ethical and moral standards and values. NCLEX, we've talked about that. Licensure in Missouri, of course, you guys are going to be graduate nurses. At the time after you graduate, you've got 90 days to take your NCLEX exam. Right now, we may have some issues with that. I don't know. They may extend that time just because of testing centers and other public places being closed for periods of time. Licensure by endorsement is different. There's also compact state licensures or compact states. There's, I don't know how many there is now, 30 something, I think, where if you have a license in Missouri, you can also apply for a license, let's say in Texas, and you don't have to, you can work in either state. But it's easier to get a compact license in another state. You just kind of ask them for it and you get it. If you want a license in, let's say, California or Washington, some of those states over there, and a few on the eastern coast also, you have to go get your fingerprints taken. You have to have proof of education, all kinds of things to get your license in some of those states that don't take the compact licensure states. And you guys are going to do licensure by exam after you graduate here. Which of the following is a true statement? A, B, C, or D? You put it in the chat. I can see the chat now. I'm seeing A's, C's. More A's. Okay. The NCLEX is the correct answer. It's a nationally recognized exam. And that's where I was talking about many states have formed together a compact where the license in one state is recognized in another. I'm not real sure what they mean about licensure is mandatory for all nurses in every state. I think it means that if you have a license in Missouri, you have to have a license in Minnesota, which you do not. I think is the way that why that is not correct. As several of you said A. Okay. Times of social change. We've got Medicare, we've got Social Security, we've got Civil Rights Acts. All of those things affect nursing in that payment systems for nurses, for nursing, for hospitals, for organizations. The wars, as I said, those have affected who does nursing, how nursing is done. The changes have all came about, I think, during wars. They found out how to treat injuries, how to prevent infections. We just keep learning about all these new things that come up. Now we're facing a new, disease. How do nurses respond to that? What precautions do we take? What's different, and it is, a lot of that is teaching our patients, teaching the public, being good examples for the public. Not stealing the toilet paper out of the hospitals. I've heard that. That's awful, you guys. Not you guys doing it, but anyway. Like I said, Florence Nightingale, she did a lot for health care reform. She was a very, very smart woman. She was a statistician. I said that right. So she pretty well developed the pie charts that we see today. She kept records on her patients, what worked, what didn't work, and statistics involving all of those treatments or interventions that were done by nursing. She came into the hospitals and she reformed infection control, was a biggie that she reformed. It's interesting to read some of her works. She wrote over 100 books in her lifetime and published them. And most of it, of course, had to do with nursing and nursing care. Today, things that we deal with, staffing shortages all over the country. When you worked in the hospital, you've probably seen a lot of agency nurses. Generational issues. Older nurses have a way of doing things. Oh, I say older, I mean seasoned nurses may have a way of doing things. You guys are the next generation of nurses. You are going to come up with the new ideas, the new ways to help people, the new ways to deal with some of these infections that we're seeing. Anything, you're fresh out of school, so you may know things that the seasoned nurses either have forgotten or didn't learn. They could learn from you if they're smart, if they're good nurses. Workloads have increased. Some states have mandatory workloads for nurses, such as California. There's issues with overtime. California is a good example of that. Nurses can only work a certain amount of hours in a day. They can only work a certain amount of hours without taking a lunch break, or it's illegal. That's a law in California. Mandatory overtime, mandatory call is required in some hospitals and nursing facilities. Workplace violence and horizontal violence in nursing. can be an issue. You can read about that. We'll talk more about that in this course. And lack of professional autonomy. We've got a lot of changes in healthcare as things go on. As you could probably tell, especially like this last couple of weeks, we've been scrambling to meet the demand of placement in clinical facilities. Things change in healthcare frequently. We have to keep up with what goes on. Advanced practice nursing, they're more educated. They sit for a different board exam. You all are going to sit for the same NCLEX exam that a bachelor prepared nurse sits for. An advanced practice nurse has a different exam because they have more autonomy, such as prescription writing, treatment interventions, things like that. They can diagnose and treat disease where nurses do not necessarily diagnose disease. That's the doctor. Okay. Okay, as you read this chapter, those are the highlights that you need to look at. Professionalism. We're going to talk more about political influences and legal issues, ethical issues. We hope it's going to be a very interesting class for you, maybe a little eye-opener in some areas, some things that you learn that you get some good takeaways from these classes. So that is that. Okay, so do you have what it takes to be a nurse? I found this on the internet and I thought it was very appropriate. To be a nurse, you have to have confidence when you step into a new job. That's hard for a graduate nurse. Don't be overconfident, but as you learn different things and get more duties down pat, things like that, get out of your orientation, which I hope you all have a very good preceptorship in your new jobs. That's a question to ask the facility where you're going to go to work. What kind of orientation do I get? Because you don't want to go to work somewhere and they give you a 2-week orientation and throw you into a charge nurse position. I have seen that done. Though as a graduate nurse, you should not be in a charge position. You should not, definitely. Somebody had, what do you mean by mandatory workload? When you're working on a floor, they may say you can have up to 8 patients. Or you have to take 8 patients. It doesn't matter what their conditions are. That would be a mandatory workload. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay. So confidence, emotional maturity. We're going to talk about that also in this class. The ability to connect the dots, meaning critical thinking. How does this affect this? Goes to here, and then what happens to my patient? You know, putting everything in their health assessment and their interview when they come into the hospital, you know, everything, their meds, their home life, chronic or acute conditions that they have, putting all that together. And again, critical thinking and decision making. You need to be able to know what to do in various situations. When do you call the doctor? When do you notify the charge nurse? When do you ask for help? Always ask for help if you need it. Seasoned nurses do not think you're stupid if you ask for help. They think you're stupid if you do not ask for help. So always, you know, if you have a question, ask it. And good nurses will want to know that. want to know that you are one that will ask questions if you're not certain. Relation-based care. You have a big impact on families and patients. You touch their lives every time you take care of them. And you build a relationship, a professional relationship with your patients. Leadership, we're going to talk about that. Lifelong learning. You are not done learning nursing. You are never done learning about nursing. I learn something all the time. That is the way that you grow as a nurse and you succeed as a good nurse. And self-reflection, thinking about your day. What could I have done different? What could I have done better? And learning from that, learning from your experiences. Thinking like a nurse. It's a whole different way of thinking of things. Critical decision making. Like I said, when to call the doctor, when not to call the doctor, when to recheck the patient, when to bring your team in on certain facts or questions that you have. Working well, that goes right along with working well with colleagues, and considering alternative points of view. Be open to advice, be open to criticism. Criticism is not necessarily negative. Criticism helps you grow. And advocate for your patients. Always, always, your patient is your main concern. I just thought these were good tips. So do you guys think you've got it? You think you can be a nurse? Yes? No? Everybody's asleep. There we go. I see some yeses. I see some yeses. That's good. Okay, so that's the characteristics of a profession, and a nursing just falls right in with all of those. I posted a link to a good article about Florence Nightingale. Like I said, she's very interesting to read. And I've got another little PowerPoint here for you. Nursing then and now. These are some of the things, some of the words that are used or were used to identify nursing back in the, 50s, 60s, 1940s, whenever. We're dedicated. Now, some of this is still true. We're very hardworking. Typically, we were female because we had that nurturing instinct to take care of people. Overworked and underpaid is totally right. Self-sacrificing. Sometimes, you go without lunch or you go without a break because your patient needs you. That's kind of typical. Another image of nursing was that they were battle axes. If you've ever seen this movie, do you recognize this person?
Nurse Ratchet.
Yep.
One flew over the cuckoo's nest.
Do what, Bobby?
One flew over the cuckoo's nest.
Yes. If you haven't seen that movie, it's a great movie. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Nurse Hatchet or Ratchet, I call her.
Ratchet.
Yeah, I call her Hatchet. Very authoritative, very full of herself, thought she knew everything, never smiled. Sometimes nursing still has that eat your young going on. That's what I was talking about, horizontal violence or horizontal, I don't know what else you'd call it, antagonism. I told you I was going to tell you a story that happened to me when I first started nursing. I told you I was just as green as I could be. Hadn't started an IV. We didn't get a lot of hands-on clinical experience. I mean, we went to clinicals, but um, in my school I went to, I just didn't get a lot of, you know, skills down. Um, Passed the course is fine, just the skills were limited. We got to see things, we didn't get to do a lot of things. So I went to work in 1984 at Phelps County, and I got a 2-week orientation on the day shift, and they put me on the night shift the next week. The nurse that the supervisor brought me to the floor, you know, introduced me to the nurses. So I got a full load that first night. I had like 8 patients. Back then, they all had IVs. They all needed preps for surgery or preps for colonoscopies the next day. They came in for everything back then. We didn't have same-day surgery stuff going on. Or they were post-op with major surgeries or minor surgeries. Didn't matter. Everybody had an IV. Everybody was on antibiotics. I'd never started an IV before. I'd never really, what you call, taken care of an IV before. You know, scared me to death. They had Foleys. They had NG tubes. You know, whatever tubes you might think of after surgery, they had them. So I went to my charge nurse that I was just introduced to, and I said, so how do you manage your team? How do you know, I've never done this before. How do you do this? And she just she was sitting at the desk, and the supervisor had left, so she had got out her knitting. So she's sitting at the desk knitting. I asked her this question, and she didn't even look up at me. She just kept knitting and kind of went, oh, you just take care of your team. And that was my orientation to Phelps County Hospital post-op floor. I struggled through it. I learned a lot. Luckily, I worked with 2 great LPNs. It wasn't long before I was charge nurse on nights. I only worked nights like 3 or 4 months, and I became charge nurse with 2 LPNs working with me, but they were fantastic. The LPNs taught me a lot, and I had a lot of respect for them. But back then, the LPNs, their main focus was skills, you know. So I really, really learned a lot. To go on with my story, though, I worked at Phelps County about 6 or 7 years. I had got up to charge nurse on day shift, and then I left for a period of time. My kids were all 3 in sports in school. They were all 3, you know, very involved in other school activities. We were building a house, so I was in charge of building the house, uh, getting all the supplies ordered and everything arranged and da da da. Anyway, I left nursing for a couple of years, and then I went back and I applied for a job at another smaller local hospital, and got hired on as the acute care supervisor. Because by this time I had my bachelor's degree. And I went to work. I went in to get my urinalysis test, and they drew some blood. I think I remember something. I don't know. Anyway, I got my drug test, and then the director of nurses called me in her office, and she said, "Do you know so and so?" And it was the same nurse that had been my orienting charge nurse at Phelps, 10 years ago. And I said, "Yeah, I know her. Why?" And she said, "Well, is this going to be a problem?" And I kind of laughed, and I said, "No." I said, "That's what her and I had as far as a relationship in the past is way gone. You know, I'm over it. And I said, why? And she said, well, she had been out on the patio eating lunch, and she had overheard this nurse say, did you see who they hired as the acute care supervisor? She said, I should stop the recording, but I'm not. She said, my ass is grass. And I just laughed. You know, I said, well, you know, what goes around comes around, but I don't hold grudges, and her and I will get along fine. So, long story short, the relationships that you develop in your career and in your life, you never know how those relationships are going to affect you later on in life. Things can come back to haunt you, or things can come back in a very positive way. So, anyway, that's kind of my story about eating their young. That's the culture that I grew up in nursing. Um, and that's the way a lot of the other nurses that have been nurses for a while thought. There's a few still out there, so you have to be careful. All right. Another way that nurses were looked at in the past is a handmaiden. The physician was in control, he was superior. Uh, you were the weaker person, you really didn't speak up about anything. And again, back when I was in nursing, when I first started nursing, if you were sitting at the nurse's desk and a physician walked in, you gave him your chair. We don't always do that anymore. We make them get their own chair. And then you've got the naughty nurse. You see this in movies, you see this in magazines. I'm sure all of you have seen it before. That nurses were the feminine model. They were always thinking about sex or sexual interests, just because of the nature of how we saw patients that didn't have any clothes on. To us, it's not a big deal. To other people, we were thought of, with the short skirt or the tight pants or whatever, that there was something going on. Other stereotypes, that we were only functional at the bedside. They're all white females. The worst one I think I heard was we all wanted to be physicians, but we weren't smart enough to be physicians, so we decided to be nurses. And as you know, and as you've learned in this program, you have to anticipate the patient going downhill. You have to be the doctor's eyes and ears. And you have to let them know when you see something that you think is amiss in a patient. Okay, other stereotypes. That's if you didn't want to be a physician, you went into nursing to marry one. Not true. Yeah, that's a picture. That's my wedding picture of my daughter and her husband. Okay. This is kind of fun stuff. You know you're a nurse when you believe that all bleeding stops eventually. You can discuss anything over a gourmet meal and it seems perfectly fine to you. The family is looking at you like, oh my gosh, what are you talking about? You have the bladder capacity of 5 grown men. Your idea of a good time is a cardiac arrest at shift change, which is not my idea of a good time at all. That's more the A+ emergency room ICU type nurse. You believe in aerial spraying of Prozac. You have weekends off planned for a year in advance. You encourage an obnoxious patient, you wouldn't do this, but to sign a self-discharge form so you don't have to deal with them any longer. Some of these things you may think in your head, but you can't really say them out loud. This is a nurse's sense of humor to relieve stress, I guess. and it's typically only between nurses. You understand this stuff. You believe that shallow gene pool should be a recognized diagnosis. You say to yourself, great veins, when you look at somebody in a grocery store. I think I told you that one. You're looking at people, strangers in Walmart going, I think I could start that IB, you know. You ever wanted to hold a seminar entitled Suicide, Doing It Right? Oops. You ever had a patient look you straight in the eye and say, I have no idea how that got stuck in there? Or you've ever restrained someone and it was not a sexual experience? I think I told you guys, we used to restrain everybody in the hospital that got confused. You know, tie them down with what they called a posy vest. You may have seen those. And the wrist restraints. Can't do that anymore. You believe a waiting room should be equipped with a Valium fountain. You want the lab to perform a dumb, whoops, I probably shouldn't, profile. Your most common assessment question is, what changed tonight to make this an emergency after you've had it for 6 months or so? You ever had a patient control his seizures when offered food? I have seen somebody control their seizures, just stop them when something happened. I've seen them fake seizures. You shock someone with an unrecognizable rhythm until you get one that you do recognize, and you call subcutaneous emphysema Rice Krispies. Excuse me, I'm gonna get a drink. Okay, this is old, but it's still, I think I should go back and research this and see if this is the same. But nurses were only cited 3% of the time in health-related articles. I think that we have a bigger presence in research now than we used to have, a lot bigger presence. So that may be something that might be of interest to someone. What we need to do and continue to do is develop nursing as a profession. And this is going to be you guys' responsibility. Establish relationships with your local communities, reporters, the media. Be in the spotlight for certain things if you can. Be a spokesperson in your community. You could do that right now by helping with this crisis that we're in. Educate other nurses in effective public communication. Public perceptions. Nurses are trusted by 92% of the population. We 85% are pleased if a son or daughter became a nurse. 91% know nurses monitor patient care. Only 14% recognize that advanced practice nurses prescribe medicines. See how that has changed in the last 20 years? Now they know that they can go to a nurse practitioner and a nurse practitioner can write a prescription for an antibiotic or whatever they need. Men in nursing, we've got a lot more than we used to, which is great. We have tried to promote nursing in men. Since 1999, since we nurses were added to the Gallup poll, we've topped the list every year. We've either been first, second, or third as far as trust issues. Who do you trust most? I think lawyers were last, probably. And it was all professions. They just added nursing as a profession in 1999, 21 years ago. Except the year 2001, firefighters were top of the list. I think policemen also are pretty far up there now. In 2015, 85% of Americans describe nurses' ethics as either very high or high. That's why public perception is so important for us. We need to continue to exemplify nursing as a profession. Be professional, be someone that the public can trust. Some things that make us, the nurses' perception of ourselves, we become disillusioned sometimes due to mainly healthcare issues that are going on around us. It can be political, it can be medical, like it is now. Hospitals, facilities, nursing facilities are always rearranging jobs, professions, as far as downsizing. That's why some states have come up with those laws that say, you know, this nurses can only have 6 patients instead of 8, or nurses can only work 6 hours without a break, without a lunch break, or 3 hours without a break, period. They're coming up more and more because they have found that it reflects on patient safety. It reflects on patient outcomes. Workload scheduling, flexibility, things like that, helping people. If you're in it for the money, you're in it for the wrong reason. Yes, we want to get paid. We want to get paid well for what we do, but it's not all about the money. It is about caring for people and seeing our patients have good outcomes. This was my 2 oldest granddaughters when they were young, playing in the rain. I think we were down at Branson. But young people also, we need to have them see us as people that they can trust. They see us as people that help people. We need to show younger people in schools and other venues that there are great career opportunities and a lot of room for growth in your profession if you're a nurse. You don't have to be a bedside medical nurse. You can work in psych. You can work in a clinic. You can work in infection control. You can work in administration. You can work in a variety of places. You can work for an insurance company. So there's a lot of opportunity out there for nurses. Okay. Recruitment and retention has always been an issue. What I've seen since 1984 in my career is about a 6 to 7 year cycle where we don't have enough nurses and then we have too many nurses, if you want to call it that. I haven't seen that so much in the last 10 years, but over the course of time, that's usually what it is. But right now, they are expecting, they said by 2020, and I'd have to look at that too, that we were going to be minus 800,000 nurses across the country. I think it's more than that now. Why? Nursing schools are limited in the number of people that they can take. A lot of people are getting jobs where they can stay at home and work. Other opportunities have opened up because of the internet, if you want to call it that. Nurses in business need to be recognized as assets versus liabilities. You will always see nursing as a minus as far as takes away from the top number that the company receives the top dollar number. And yes, we are expensive in that respect, but in the long run, with patient outcomes and insurance reimbursements, we should be considered an asset because we are the ones that care for the patient in the hospital, get them home, get them the home care that they need, and prevent readmission to the hospital, which takes away money from the hospital if they get readmitted within a certain number of days for certain diagnoses. We need to grow our own nurses in the community. That's why we need to have that good perception in the community. So we share positive stories, ways that we can influence our local community, vote, run for a political office, be a positive role model, write a newspaper column, maybe, be active in local community health projects, and be an active member of society. Positive. Johnson & Johnson had some wonderful ads out there for nurses. If you haven't looked at their site, you should look at it. Not just a little funny there. Little humor in class. And there are my references for this PowerPoint. Any questions? Yep, been talking about Healthy People 2020. We need to get on there and look at the newest Healthy People. See where we're at. See what, because that's where you guys are going to be looking at looking at it from. Here's what we thought was going to happen in 2020. Here's what really happened, and here's what they're expecting in 2030. None here, what? Oh, no questions? Okay, good. Well, it's almost 7:30. I'll let you guys out a little bit early. Can we still sign up for NCLEX? Certainly. Yes, I would. The sooner you get your name in the pot and get a date scheduled, the better. Like I said, usually first part of June is the earliest that you can do it. But you will find that the earlier that you can take your NCLEX, the better, because the information and the study habits and the studying is all fresh in your head. And it is a proven fact that those that wait 90 days or longer typically fail NCLEX. So we don't want you guys to do that. Yep, you can pay for NCLEX. Yep, you put May 2020. You're right, Darla. And like Darla's saying, you do have to pay for it when you sign up for it, but then it's paid and taken care of and done. Ask your folks to send you money for graduation. Any other questions? You guys want to come off mute or anything? Yes, we have class tomorrow night. I think they waived the fee on the nursing application to the state, not the NCLEX. Any other questions? If not, I will see you guys again at 5 o'clock tomorrow night. And
Thanks, Barb.
you're welcome, Bobby.
Thanks, Barb.
Thank you guys for being here. And, you know, we're going to get some more webcams going and class participation, and it's going to be a fun class, okay? Except for writing the papers, maybe. That may not be so fun, but got to do it. You're all welcome, and you let us know if you have any questions. Well, I think we've tried to answer everything that we know at this time. But if you do have questions, be sure and ask Sandy or me. You're welcome. Good night.